kind of like you running in.
All right.
Hi.
Hey.
Hey.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
We're gonna talk today with Laura about her triathlon experience. So,
Yeah, like a little race recap,
Yeah.
I think, maybe, and
and also like your motivation to do it,
cool.
how you're feeling after,
Love it.
all of those types of things.
Love it.
Okay, so first things first, how are you feeling?
Such a good question. I'm feeling really great. I'm trying to find a more succinct word. Like accomplished and empowered and like doing the thing that I never thought that I could do or would be able to do or have the capacity to do.
Yeah.
It feels really amazing, and before we started recording and you were like, how are you feeling and what's next? And it was, I think, like what I'm feeling right now is very much like if your capacity is here, you kind of like end up a little bit below it. It's like when you reach for the stars, you end up amongst the clouds, like that whole feeling.
Yes.
Now I'm reaching for the universe, like beyond, like infinity. So I'm like in this space of like soaking in the enjoyment and the excitement and the accomplishment, but also like sights are a little bit set.
Mm-hmm.
So a little further.
Mm-hmm. So for those people who don't know,
Mm-hmm.
tell us what you did, what you were training for, what the race consisted of, etc.
Okay, you're such a great interviewer.
Thank you.
So the race that I completed was an Olympic distance triathlon. It was an Ironman event. And what that looks like is there's 3 disciplines involved. So there's a swim, there's a bike, and there's a run. My distances were a 1,500 meter swim, a 40K bike ride, and then a 10-kilometer run. And that's also including transition time. So one of the questions that I guess not a question, but the reaction of like, you have to do the whole thing wet? Like, yes, you do. Like, you do. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But you make adjustments for it, and you like wear gear for it, and you prepare for it. So you start, the start line is at a swim start, and you align yourself with the people who like are kind of in the same time frame that you think that you'll complete it. And so the way that this race rolled out was every 5 seconds, like 6 people would go.
Oh.
So yeah, it was really cool. It was a really cool entrance, and it was into a lake. And so they kind of had like this, like not a barricade, but this like starting point, and you would like line up with 6 people, and you're kind of like, okay, like before you line up, and I'll say this too, there was, I think there was 1,200 people competing in my race. So in and amongst the 1,000 of people, you're figuring out, okay, am I gonna do like a 20 minute, a 30 minute, a 40 minute? And then like, okay, am I gonna do like a 32 minute or a 33 minute? So like really trying to kind of, because not the worst thing, but one of the things that you have to think about in terms of the challenge of swimming with 1,200 people are arms and legs going everywhere. Got kicked in the head once. I kicked someone else once.
My gosh.
Which I think that's a win.
Well, I feel like that's sort of inevitable when
Yeah.
you're swimming with 1,200 other people.
In and amongst that amount of people. And so like what was really interesting for me in my own individual race was the piece of it that like I was most panicked about. And like we were talking about this earlier, like not necessarily the fear of drowning, but I was working with this kind of like panic reaction, and I still haven't figured out where that has come from, but my strategy was just like exposure therapy. Like just swim, and it worked for the most part, which I was like super excited about. Thank you for your patience. Well, I'm like, what do I do? How do I do this? And that was like really interesting, because then I started to recognize that like that's not only my experience, that's also other people's experiences. So being in a lake and swimming from buoy to buoy to buoy to buoy, you see how I was, because I was watching people, which maybe impacted my time a little bit, but it was very much like, okay, like I can see that like you're like not panicking necessarily, but you're working with discomfort, and you're working with discomfort. And then And then it felt actually like really good to know that like, okay, I know I can work with this panic and continue, and it's not going to necessarily like take me out of the race completely. It's like something that I need to work with in this relationship to my own experience of it, like working with it and finding ways to work with it rather than just be like panic and I'm done, you know? So that was really exciting for me. And then so you go to a transition zone, and so the day before you go, you rack your bike, and the morning of, you bring everything that you'll need for your transition. So helmet, sunglasses, fuel, like lip chap, like chafe cream, like anything. I also brought Tylenol just in case.
Right.
Like all these things but you only have so much space to put it because there's 1,200 other bikes there. And so you put all that stuff the morning of, and so it's really interesting, like even the layout of how you put your transition zone like impacts your time, because that time that you're in your transition is included in your overall time.
Right.
So you also are training for like not only your swim, your bike, your run, but your transitions,
Right.
and you're on and off the bike,
and you're like taking off your wetsuit during that time and like that type of stuff.
Yeah. So you're taking off your wetsuit. You're like, okay, I have to like dry my socks or dry my feet off so that I can get my socks, because any second counts, right? So that was like really interesting, just to kind of like be in that, like everyone's in it together. And that's the other really thing that I appreciate about triathlon. It's like, even though it is competitive, and like I was not in the pro race at all, so I don't know what that experience is like, but my experience is that like everyone is kind of like cheering each other on, like got it, like whatever, like in the run, you know, like from the bike to the run I had to pee, and so like I stopped in a porta potty because they had them on the which also is included in your time, so you're like trying go oh my gosh. And so I came out and I was like, I couldn't get the zipper back up on my tri-suit, and some like another race participant was there, and she was like, do you want help? I was like, yes please. So we're just like walking and chatting to the run, you know, like it's a very communal environment in which to be an athlete, I think, from my experience. Love that. So then the bike was 40 kilometers, and that was, for me, I was really happy with my time on that because I did not train for hills. I like, for whatever reason, like Mont Tremblant is known for skiing. Why would I not train for hills? I don't know. So I was actually very pleased with my time on my bike, and like I was extra pleased when like people were like on the inclines. They're like, da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, I gotta go. So like I passed a lot of people on my inclines because I knew if I slowed down anymore, like I was not doing it. So kind of like tapping into that, I don't even want to say resilience, but that like effort, like that effort and that like ability to actually like do the thing that you need to do to continue forward. Like it's not like I could be like, okay, I'm just gonna like have a little rest here, and like you could pull over to the side and rest, and you could get off your bike and walk it up. Those are options. But for me, it was like, no, I have to do this. Like this is in my essence to like stay on the bike and to do the thing. And my bike time was like a relatively good bike time, but the thing also that that I didn't necessarily train enough for was the fueling aspect. So I forgot to fuel on my bike. So when you're going on your bike, really you should be fueling anytime that you're exercising, like 45 to an hour with a concerted amount of effort. You should be refueling like in those time frames. And so I was good in my transition, but I totally forgot to fuel on my bike for the run. So that's where like in my transition from the bike, I crashed into a gate.
Oh my god.
I crashed into a gate because it was a loop that we had to do. So it was a 20K loop, and then we had to do it again. But when we looped around, it was like such a tight turnaround. So I was going slow, and then I was just like, whoa, crash into the
Did you take anyone out with you?
No, I didn't take anyone out. I crashed at the gate, and there were spectators, and they like held my bike so I could get back on and keep going. I know, which I didn't like. I didn't think that was gonna happen, so I didn't train for like getting back on my bike after a crash. So that was like just a funny No, I didn't get hurt.
Funny.
I know. It was funny. Like a funny moment. But the other thing that happens too when you're exerting a certain amount of effort is like, I think cyclists call it like boinking. So it's like your brain stops working, your body stops working because you've given all the energy that you possibly can. Right. And that was like a little bit of that moment, like not really like, okay, like getting back on, up and you go.
Yeah.
So that was funny. And then, so then you go back to your transition. You have to put, so triathlon has like the thickest rule book, thickest rule book. There's so many rules. And I will say, like, I'm very happy that they did not give out any penalties in my race because I would have gotten all of the penalties. Like, for instance, in the bike, you're supposed to be, I think it's like 12 feet away from another cyclist. And if you're going to pass, you have to pass them within like X amount of seconds. And the person that you're passing needs to give you the room to like kind of get back in. Okay. That was like, I was this close to some people, like, because I was like, I can't, well, first of all, to have that many athletes on one course, there's only so much space.
Totally.
And then second, like, because of my noviceness, it was very much like, if I slow down and give them 12 feet of space, I'm not gonna go. Like, I'm gonna fall off my bike and I won't be able to move forward. I won't have any more forward momentum. Yeah. So I think they might have said like, after the fact, like, we're not giving any penalties for this particular race. Yeah. And so like, I was very grateful for that. And then, so into the transition, got my nutrition, got my running shoes on, and if you know me, like, I've been working with some foot issues, so got like my specific foot stuff situated, and then went like hat, sunglasses, and you go. And again, like, it was the, like, I kind of lost steam a little bit. Totally. And it was like the hill part, like, that was, but the race course was beautiful, the weather was beautiful. All the spectators were beautiful. Everyone was so engaging and like supportive, and like you can kind of see how this, like, how you would want to do it again, like from the environment of it. The run was good, and then like what kept me going was like, okay, I'm gonna pass this person. Okay, I'm gonna pass this person. Yeah. And then they had stations. They had like water and Gatorade and like aid stations along the route too. So it couldn't have been a more supportive environment. And it was like super interesting. My time overall was like not a great time, but for me, like, I wasn't racing anything. I wasn't trying to beat anything. I was trying to not drown. I was trying to not crash. I crashed, but still, here we are.
You're fine.
Yeah. And one foot kept going in front of the other. So for me, like, my whole race, like, I felt really good about. And I forget what all of your other questions were.
I don't even know if I asked them yet. It's fine. So, like, post this race, are you feeling like you want to do another one? Like, how does that feel for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely, I do. I am taking like a little bit of a respite from training, like last week, this week. Just to kind of like settle back into my own, because it's a lot, and that's super interesting as a part of the whole experience too, is just like the prioritization and the dedication to training. And so I haven't like seen any friends in a long period of time too, so just kind of like settling back into that a little bit, and then looking to the horizon as to what's next. I'd like to do another Olympic distance, like the same distance, just to see if I could improve on my time. And then what's also interesting is that a friend of mine beforehand, she offered this reflection of like, it's interesting that your discomfort needs to be found in something that is so extreme. And I'm like, oh, that's a really interesting, I didn't think about that. Like, that wasn't on my radar at all. And so now that I have the Olympic distance under my belt, like, I'm just mindful of like, okay, is this because now I have this and I'm comfortable? I'm not comfortable, but like, I've done this thing that I thought I could never do. And now am I raising the bar? Am I raising the bar too much? Am I like, what does my capacity look like? Like, all these things. What I think it really solidified is that like, there's opportunity for it all. Yeah. Like, it's now like, I've confirmed that I can do a thing that I was afraid of, and like, what else is there? Right.
Totally. And what did the recovery, or what does the recovery piece look like for you? Like, what are you doing now that you're finding recovery and rest in?
So it's interesting. So recovery and rest, two different things. And I just want to point that out because I am resting. There's a lot of rest. I was on the road for the last week. And so like last night we got home and I got in the bath immediately. I was like, this is where I need to be. Slowing down. Slowing down is a big piece of recovery. Moving more intentional. Getting back into the things that I love to do that bring me joy. So like learning, getting back into the somatic practices that like have kind of fallen to the side a little bit. So getting that back into my body, movement practices. I also like play. Like play for me is a really soul filling thing that I love to do. But like this rest this week is a little bit more prescribed because of another injury. So that's like, it's interesting. Like, would I be resting as much this week had I not have incurred that injury? I don't know. But it's been like family time and like outside at the beach. Like, sorry, everyone who's been here and experiencing a significant amount of rain. Sorry. Let me hide my tan. But yeah, just things that fill my soul up and that I'm excited to do. And it's so interesting because like I was so excited to come back to work to see you. I'm excited to see Amy and I'm excited to see our community members. Like that does fill me up.
Totally.
So like just like a little bit slower things.
And then what does recovery look like?
So recovery is a little bit more like biological. So like sauna is like hot, cold, more so like restorative practices, stretching, like lengthening kind of all the muscles that have been activated for so long. And it's interesting because you have to watch like the even in terms of the muscle tissue, right? Like we think of like lengthening as good and it is good, but if you are in a highly active and highly like forward momentum activity, like you don't want to lengthen too much because you need to have the tightness of the muscle in order to help propel you forward. So it's like finding the balance of that. Water, lots of water. Stay hydrated.
Love that.
Red light therapy.
Anything else you want to share about your experience?
Anything else do I want to share about my experience? I'm thinking like just the takeaway, really. The takeaway, like it's the prioritization and the commitment to yourself does, it does reap its own rewards. And I think sometimes we get so focused on like one particular thing when really our experience of it can be multifaceted, and maybe we find benefit outside of whatever we think that it could be.
Love that.
Yay!
Awesome. All right, well I think that's it for now. If there's
and
anything else you want to share, then we can do another one.
A follow-up.
Part 2.
A race recap part 2.
Perfect.
Absolutely, and obviously like I'm not an expert in this, it's just my experience of it, but I just wanted to share. So thank you for holding that space.
Of course.
Yeah.
All right, perfect.